Poetry speaks. Who I am. Poems of discovery, inspiration, independence, and everything else. Editor, Elise Passion. Series editor, Dominique Raca. A note from the publisher. There are extraordinary poems in Poetry Speaks Who I Am. We asked some of the most talented poets in the country to share with us the poems that had touched them when they were your age, and the poems they have written that they thought could mean something important to you. It is a highly unusual collection, coming-of-age moments caught next to classics, next to grieving, kitchen tables, Cinderella, dragons, and school periods. I started keeping a poetry notebook when I was in 8th grade. It had all of my favorite poems, and I think I kept a version of that notebook well into my 20s. I would go back to it to find the poems that moved me. Some of those poems even came through our amazing advisory board all the way to this book. So Poetry Speaks Who I Am is a highly personal book. For me, this poetry is life-altering. It's gritty, it's difficult, and it hurts in all the ways that growing hurts. It's meant to be visceral and immediate. It's meant to be experienced. So we paired the book with an audio CD on which you can hear how the poets themselves interpret these poems. Like all of the Poetry Speaks books I've made, the book was many years in the making, and poets have been recording tracks for the disc for nearly a year. One of the things I found interesting when I conceptualized the book, the feel of it and the voices that would create it, was that there wasn't a poetry book made for you. In fact, we seem to skip from great poetry, books for young children, directly to adult poetry. And yet, it's all your age that poetry can rock your soul, because these poets are talking about all the things that you're feeling, and feeling deeply. So this is our hope. Not only to bring you a book that touches and moves you, that speaks directly to you, but also to bring you a book that inspires you to try writing and expressing your own poetry. And in the end, poetry changes the world because, as poet Jason Schneider says beautifully in Eternity, the poem that begins this book, it makes us feel known. And every time the poem is read, no matter what her situation or age, this is more or less what happens. Poetry moves you when it's true. Find what's true for you. Happy hunting. Dominique Raca. Alone by Edgar Allan Poe. From childhood's hour I have not been, as others were, I have not seen. As others saw, I could not bring my passions from a common spring. From the same source I have not taken, my sorrow I could not awaken, my heart to joy at the same tone, and all I loved alone. Then, in my childhood, in the dawn of a most stormy life was drawn, from every depth of good and ill, the mystery which binds me still, from the torrent or the fountain, from the red cliff of the mountain, from the sun that round me rolled in its autumn tint of gold, from the lightning in the sky as it passed me flying by, from the thunder and the storm, and the cloud that took the form, when the rest of heaven was blue, of a demon in my view. One Art by Elizabeth Bishop. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day, accept the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing farther, losing faster, places and names, and where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last or next to last of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, and vaster. Some realms I owned, 2 rivers, a continent. I miss them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not hard to master, though it may look like, write it, like disaster. How I Learned to Sweep by Julia Alvarez. My mother never taught me sweeping. One afternoon, she found me watching TV. She eyed the dusty floor boldly and put a broom before me and said she'd like to be able to eat her dinner off that table, and nodded at my feet, then left. I knew right off what she expected and went at it. I stepped and swept. The TV blared the news. I kept my mind on what I had to do until in minutes I was through. Her floor was as immaculate as a just-washed dinner plate. I waited for her to return and turned to watch the president, live from the White House, talk of war. In the Far East, our soldiers were landing in their helicopters. Into jungles, their propellers swept like weeds seen underwater, while perplexing shots were fired from those beautiful green gardens, into which these dragonflies filled with little men descended. I got up and swept again as they fell out of the sky. I swept all the harder when I watched a dozen of them die, as if their dust fell through the screen upon the floor I had just cleaned. She came back and turned the dial. The screen went dark. "That's beautiful," she said, and ran her clean hand through my hair and on, over the windowsill, coffee table, rocker, desk, and held it up. I held my breath. "That's beautiful," she said, impressed. She hadn't found a speck of death. Dreams by Langston Hughes. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken, winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field, frozen with snow. This video is part of the Poetry Online series brought to you by the Monroe Area Council for the Arts and supported by the East Tennessee Foundation. Thank you.